Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the 11th edition of the Spain Investors Day. On behalf of Estudio de Comunicación, owner of this event, our strategic partners Endesa, BNP Paribas, Exam BNP Paribas, our sponsors Grant Thornton, CK Bank and Prisa, and our collaborators BME, SIX, ICEX Invest in Spain, Equipo Económico, AON, ICO, Linklaters, and the Ayuntamiento de Madrid. Thank you all for your attendance. We would like to especially welcome the fourth Vice President of the Government and Minister for the Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, Teresa Ribera Rodríguez. For safety reasons and following the required restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic, this event has multiple venues this year. Institutional events will take place at this auditorium. Face-to-face meetings between investors and companies will be held at BNP Paribas Central Office in Spain. And one-to-one meetings will be held online from the offices of the 46 Spanish companies and the 250 investors from 14 different countries participating in this event. I now give the floor to Mr. José Bogas Gálvez, CEO for Endesa, leading electricity and gas company in Spain and Portugal, with over 10,000 people, strongly committed with the energy transition to a decarbonized economy through the responsible management of economic, social, and environmental factors, as well as with the firm development of renewable energy through Enel Green Power España. We would like to give our special thanks to Endesa and its CEO for their support to this event. Mr. Bogas, please, yours is the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to the fourth Vice President and Minister for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge, to members of the Spain Investor Day Council, to the Spain Investor Day President, and to friends who are following us in person or online. I would like to sincerely thank you all very much your attendance at this event at a time of great importance for our country. It is true that everything we have been experiencing for almost a year has been critical and continues to be so in all parts of the world. However, it is here and now where all political and economic actors, those from businesses, and of course, each one of us individually as members of a resilient and strong Spanish society must do our best to move forward. Therefore, I believe that it is very significant that this event is taking place. Spain is an important country within the European Union, and as such, the European Union has pulled out all the stop regarding the exercise in facing this crisis, guaranteeing that we emerge from it more robust, aware, and sustainable. And in the context of work to be done, challenge to be faced, decision to be made, and initiative to be promoted, well, this is where the energy sector in general and the electricity sector in particular, the environment, and the just energy transition take on a particularly important role. For this, and for many other reasons, it is today an honor for me to introduce Teresa Ribera, fourth Vice President and Minister for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenges. And I say this like the song from the bottom of my heart, because I have known her for many years, and beyond the respect and personal esteem I hold for her, I have always valued the great work she has carried out in each and every one of the respective responsibilities she has had during her professional life. Now, as the head of the Ministry for Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenges, she has the enormous responsibility of creating the right framework within which to accelerate the energy transition. An absolutely vital transition for good economic performance so as to ensure our planet's future, which is threatened as never before by the perverse effects of climate change and the loss of biodiversity. The electricity sector is experiencing the most significant industrial reconversion in its history, at least in my opinion. And as has happened in other industrial reconversion processes, it is up to the state to lay the foundation, promote scenarios of change, and simplify processes to make things happen. The big difference compared to other industrial reconversion processes is that at this time, there is, at least, again, in my opinion, there is a general feeling that it is everyone's responsibility, including businesses and citizens, to achieve a fair transition and that no one is left behind. The vocation of companies like Endesa is to repeat a scheme that helps to structure societies and regions, that is an economic engine that ensures stability in the areas in which it invests, and that we can do all this within a framework of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. Allow me just to outline some of the initiatives that have come from the Vice President, and that, yes, I want to underline and acknowledge that they serve as an optimal framework so that the energy transition and the reconversion of this sector both run through the appropriate channels and at the time when this should happen. In Spain, we have already a draft law on climate change and energy transition. We have laid the foundations for the circular economy strategy. We have implemented the emission reduction plan. We have an integrated national energy and climate plan that has already been sent to the European Union. We have presented the second national plan for adaptation to climate change, which is in line with the 2030 horizon. We have a long-term decarbonization strategy that sets the path to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. There is already a first hydrogen roadmap that should serve as a catalyst for a Spanish hydrogen industry. For a few weeks, there has been a draft law for the National Sustainability Fund of the electricity sector written up, which launches fundamental signals in favor of the necessary electrification of the economy that will have a positive impact on the bills of electricity customers. This draft law envisages acting on the high costs that the first wave of renewables energy caused from 2000 to 2010, and on effort sharing among all actors in the energy sector, not only the electricity sector, thus relieving the final electricity customer from this burden. These are just some of the initiatives, not all, that the Minister Ribera and her team have promoted in recent months and that I value as positive and ambitious, and that are, at least in my opinion, well underway. Finally, dear Vice President and Minister, you have always believed in the importance of public and private collaboration to achieve objectives that, in the end, must be good objectives for society, that promote growth, and that are absolutely aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. And now, I hand over to you to continue. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, and thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation to participate in this event. An event, a gathering that has overcome many difficulties and takes place in a moment where we can stress how far and how deep we have experienced along the last year a clear, strong, and common feeling of vulnerability. We have become aware of vulnerabilities we had not properly identified before, and we have experienced how fragile and exposed we all are. The pandemic and increasing extreme weather events show us to what extent we need to think and invest differently in order to count on a safer planet, on a safer economy. We know now better about the common risk we face and the extent of our interdependence. This is something that the science community have insisted along the years, but not only them. They did it so also in the World Economic Forum. Its assessment go along similar lines for a very long time already, to underline the huge impact of environmental-related risk to our economy, the social welfare and the prosperity of we all. That means serious threats for peace and sustainability, for stability among nations, but also within the society. Therefore, the decisions to take must be oriented to achieve at least three major objectives. First, we need to reduce the vulnerability by increasing resilience. We have realized the risk of our economy. This will persist after the pandemic unless we change the way we understand fragility, the way we understand durability. Second, we face the challenge to learn how we can frame and manage uncertainties. The recovery of stability, the investment and the employment must include reducing uncertainty by a combination of measures. Anticipation, learning, observation, so to be prepared to different scenarios to reduce this level of uncertainty. Defining a clear horizon for reforms and investments, the improvement of coherence and the sense of direction for the transformation of our economies, and the people's prosperity and business development within the environmental limits. We need to strengthen, we need to facilitate these purposes among the different regulation decisions. We need to invest to transform. We need a recovery plan to succeed in these goals. It will be necessary to adopt an innovative approach combining regulation, incentives, and resources so that the proper decisions can be taken in an easy manner. These objectives are embedded in the commitment to the digital transition and especially to the green economy as levers to build a more solid and more resilient future for the world, for the European economy, and for the Spanish society. A business-as-usual approach would only worsen the vulnerable context where we are now. The best alternative is to decisively link the response to the economic crisis with the fast-tracking of climate action and energy transition, constituting a fully fledged program for economic transformations. Green investments are also a source of new employment, an essential factor for the economy right now. Reducing unemployment, reallocating workers from sectors at risk or in transition is a challenging task that deserves our full attention, our full political energy, but also a full business engagement. Compared to business as usual, this has a significant add value for the economic traction and expansion, for the improvement in the balance of different payment settings, and for the health benefits that we all deserve. These are some of the most evident consequences, but not the only ones. The OECD has estimated that compared to business as usual, by 2050, a climate-compatible public policy package can increase GDP by up to 2.8% across the G20 countries. And when adding the positive effect of avoiding climate impacts, the net effect on GDP could increase to nearly 5% in developed and emerging G20 countries. Investing in climate means equals investing in prosperity. If we zoom into the energy sector, the International Energy Agency and the IMF have estimated that the 3-year green energy public investment package could raise the world's production by 3.5% in 2023 and create or save up to 9 million jobs, considering a stimulus plan of $3 trillion worth 0.7% of global GDP in 2021 and 2022, from public funds and mobilization of private investments through government-led reforms. These estimates clearly call for an acceleration of the energy transition and for a reinforcement of climate resilience investments. This is transforming our economy development model with the aim to achieve the full decarbonization by 2050 and enhance resilience across the society and the economy, ensuring that no one is left behind. This is why there is no surprise that the European Union Next Generation package has put the Green Deal at its heart. We can boost the economy and create employment. We can mainstream climate risk management within the different key sectors: energy, transport, agriculture, or tourism. We can learn to apply a green taxonomy system that enhances and strengthens our finance. We can improve a fast-tracking investments in the renovation wave or reconfiguring our urban setting and in other strategic reforms that can boost employment and economy, as I said. The European Union proposed to use this unique public investment effort to leapfrog into a new green economic scenario. And this is also what we want. We think that this provides confidence and durability for our economy and for our people. From the EU Next Generation funds, 50% of the budget will support the EU economic modernization. And at least 37% of the funds should be dedicated to combat climate change, the largest EU public investment ever dedicated to this purpose. In addition, to eradicate any possible remaining doubts, we can also strengthen the importance of the European Union Council deciding to raise Europe's climate ambition last December with a new objective to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 level. That consolidates the EU pathway to climate neutrality by 2050. Spain has been the forefront of the European Union's approach to post-COVID recovery. We have championed climate ambition, and we have conceived a recovery, transformation, and resilience plan fully aligned with the EU's sense of direction. And we think that this is something that provides confidence to investors, but also social fairness to people. Fast-tracking reforms and investments that can deliver a swift bounce back of the economy, that can attract sustainable finance, and in that context, we should be improving our capacity to appeal for a sound and consistent recovery package with a domestic green finance approach. We can generate employment and change years towards a green and inclusive development path. We can modernize, build resilience, and promote the levels of prosperity through digitalization, greening the economy, and fighting inequalities at social and territorial level. That's the way we insist to stress what are the principles at the core of the Spain's recovery plan, what we identify as the 4 cross-cutting basic pillars in order to represent what are the 10 main leverage policies on the 30 tractor projects. The plan seeks to mobilize private investments with a multiplier effect on the economy and the employment. We would like to attract and retain responsible investors that can modernize our industry, our economy, improve our skill sets while preserving the environmental and promoting the social cohesion, investing in infrastructures, investing in efficiency, investing in a much more wiser way to use resources. There is a broad consensus on all these lines. We need to look at this recovery as an opportunity to set the table for a sustainable and inclusive future, to respond to this shock by anticipating our efforts to transform our economies as most of European countries were already planning to do. This is the only way to make sure that we engage from this crisis into a better shape now than before. Spain has a number of green sectors and comprehensive value chains with an outstanding potential for the time to come. The energy transition, supported by a massive deployment of renewables and with a cross-cutting impact on other sectors such as mobility and housing retrofitting or urban renovation. The resilience of infrastructures, the climate change adaptation in all sectors of our economy, and the circular economy, as it has already been stated. About 9% of the resources in this recovery plan aim to accelerate a fair and inclusive energy transition. Fast-tracking the energy transition is possible, and it constitutes one of the major vectors for mobilizing the employment and the economic activity. Spain is bringing forward to 2023 the intermediate objective that our national integrated plan on energy and climate had previously stated for 2025. Today, Spain has a historic opportunity at hand to transform the way we produce and consume energy, but also the industrial and services value chains associated to this energy transformation. We are already ensuring a conducive regulatory framework to facilitate this transition. Today, at long last, the context is right. The large-scale deployment of renewables responds to the need for a 100% renewable energy system based on a maximum efficiency, a maximum of electrification of the final use of energy, and the integration of renewable energy solutions. A system that is open to citizens and companies, and different administrations. A system that could need to take full advantage of the digitalization and other instrumental ways to help to this happening faster. Spain is well endowed and needs to tap on existing resources, solar and wind. We need to take advantage of the potential for distributed solar energy generation by means of solar roofs, for example. Citizens and companies increasingly want to become generators of the energy they consume and reduce their electricity bills. A clear, stable, and predictable regulatory framework is essential. This is our bet. We need to stimulate private investments in the deployment of renewable energy solutions and help to reduce the electricity bills at any household and at the industrial consumption level. A regulatory framework that guarantees a strong boost to the deployment of renewable energy is underway. We have worked out and passed different pieces of legislation during the last 2 years to ease up administration procedures and facilitate access to the grid for renewable energy projects. Other key reforms are scheduled for the coming weeks and months. A new system of auctions and other lines of support for innovative high-technology projects, strategy for the deployment of floating offshore wind energy, strategy for the development of green hydrogen, as it has already been mentioned, an energy storage strategy, and a clear commitment to a just transition that creates new job opportunities in areas needing economic reactivation after the phase-out of fossil fuel industries. The promotion of new business models in the energy sector is a driver for green employment, offering new professional horizons for young people, but also stating new ways to understand finance models, finance solutions. It is a pole of attraction for new skills and talent. We need to think in the next generation of citizens. In this vein, investments will be promoted through competitive frameworks for innovation and technology developments in renewable energy, batteries, hybridization, use of new technologies, support lines to integrate renewables into the building, industrial and agricultural sectors, boosting the bioenergy value chain with capacity building for the production of biogas, for instance, investments in innovative and pre-commercial marine renewable energy projects, and boosting of the industrial supply chain, support in logistics, promotion of startups and new initiatives and testing platforms. We want to become a very relevant, powerful country in terms of innovation in this sector. The launch of energy storage constitutes a new area full of opportunities, both industrially and in terms of integrating renewable energy into a resilient, digitalized grid network that can sustain the transformation of our energy system. The promotion of smart electrical infrastructures, storage, and new business models opens the door to new investments focusing on, among others, the digitalization of the energy networks, which must be linked to a justification of its impact on a greater integration of renewables into the grid. The support for large-scale storage, contributing to the 6 gigawatts storage target set in our national plan. The support lines for behind-the-meter storage to enable renewable energy parks and domestic and industrial consumers to take a more active role in the energy system. The promotion of a cluster for technology development of storage with public leadership and open to the participation of technological centers and the private sector. The support for new business models in the energy transition, such as independent aggregators, demand management projects, or support for startups in innovative initiatives in the energy field. The commitment to renewable hydrogen as a country project also represents a huge opportunity for the future. Spain seeks to become an European reference in the deployment of the entire industrial value chain to achieve at least 4 gigawatts by 2030. The commitment to renewable hydrogen from an investment perspective will imply the deployment of the innovative and knowledge-based value chain, with support for technology centers and companies. The development of our own technological capacities in hydrogen, with mechanisms for innovative public procurement and public-private partnerships. The promotion of renewable hydrogen cluster for sectoral integration, facilitating the use of renewable hydrogen by industrial sectors, and placing green hydrogen production in the appropriate environments. The support for pioneering renewable hydrogen manufacturing projects, scaling up the electrolysis capacity in our country to allow hydrogen production and demand to take off while developing the associated technological and industrial ecosystem. These are not the only plans we intend to promote. We know that the recovery path also plans the investments in sustainable cities and mobility, the need to retrofit and invest in our urban space in large cities and small towns, the contribution to mitigate the air pollution while creating jobs, the digitalization for smart homes and solar roofs as part of the plan for zero-emission buildings. The plan also focuses on making our cities safer and more comfortable, to invest in a high-quality public transport service, both contributing to clean air and to the integration of different transport modalities that will modernize our network. It boosts the transformation of the vehicle fleet with a comprehensive package of reforms and investments aimed at electric mobility, including the deployment of more than 100,000 new recharging points by 2023, and a rapid penetration of e-vehicles in our national fleet. It assists our industry to reposition itself. But the sustainable mobility goes beyond. We look into new transport patterns for citizens, adaptation and reinforcement of the metropolitan public transport and the non-motorized mobility. This new mobility is also at the heart of the health system, but also at the electrification of transport in the commitment for innovation and new industry solutions. It also allows us to regain public spaces for citizens. It improves our low-emission zones, the non-motorized mobility, and the capacity of the different municipalities to work at the different scale to facilitate healthy cities. Promoting an industrial value chain, an industrial ecosystem, is part of the game. Spain is fully committed to the intensification of the transfer electrification. Intelligent researching platforms in both directions, the prototypes for efficient, sustainable, and safe mobility is key. It happens a similar thing with housing rehabilitation and urban renovation. The renovation wave is stressed by the European Commission as one of the main goals in this recovery package. Public housing and buildings, neighborhoods, towns, it has a very positive social effect. It creates employment, it challenges the use of new materials, it challenges the use of the domotic and digital solutions. We need to work on the integration of possible industrial and energy functions of the buildings. We need to associate the finance community for this purpose. The aim is also to move towards cities that are more resilient to extreme weather events. A new support line for the implementation of energy transitions in municipalities with less than 5,000 inhabitants has already been discussed and agreed with different regional governments. It is part of our priorities in the launch of this package. We need to build resilience in infrastructures and ecosystems. Public infrastructure at different scale, green infrastructure for sustainable water management and coastal flood risk management. The public investment related to resilient infrastructures and ecosystems is quite attractive. We need to mobilize 12% of the plant's budget to these purposes. We think that the public hydraulic domain, the water quality, the urban cycle of water will be key in the time to come. The infrastructures have the capacity to mobilize large volumes of investment in the short term and to generate structural impact on the whole society and the economy. Our recovery plan includes reforms and investments worth more than 1,300 million to reduce the vulnerability of water resources and coastal areas. This is key for a country like Spain, where the population is mainly concentrated in the coastal areas at risk because of the climate, but also at risk because of not very compatible and environmental sound behaviors along the lines. The bulk of the investments are expected to go to water resources, to invest in a fragile environmental asset as the water is, but also to improve the planning and management of water and to develop the environmental infrastructures to allow to do so. The security of critical infrastructures, so to mitigate the risk of flooding, or the wastewater treatment and the reuse of water in the time to come. The restoration of the ecosystems, the recovery of the aquifers, the coastal ecosystems, the nature-based solutions, and to address the different elements that explain why erosion has become one of the main threats for our economy, but also for our way of living. Engineering and nature-based solutions will be key in the time to come. We think that the restoration of degraded areas is going to be absolutely key. The involvement, the improvement of infrastructures for accessibility to the terrestrial maritime public domain, the recovery of the nature-based solutions, and the smart grids to monitor what it is going on will be essential in the time to come, so to protect biodiversity, beaches, dune systems, wetlands, and so many other key elements of our economy and heritage. Adaptation measures go beyond the physical infrastructures. The different economic sectors will have to face the great challenges of the climate impacts. The climate risk management in decision-making is absolutely key. And again, the financial sector, the capacity to assess what are the main risks and how to adapt, how to divest this risk, is going to be key to count on a sound financial response. The biodiversity protection, the environmental services, the investing on ecosystem restorations will be part of our plans. It is a critical moment. It is a paramount moment, a key important year for Spain to face the future with different capacities and skills. We need boldness, we need to capitalize our strengths, we need to position our country as a green champion where people aim to live, where investors aim to invest. So thank you so much. We are at your disposal for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Vice President. With your permission, we proceed to ask you the questions that the investors have sent us online and through a platform that is available for it, and that the people, some people have handed in. An investor from a firm based in London is asking regarding the energy price. His question goes like this. Today, the energy price has increased by 6.7%, up to a total of 110% in January. This increase has reopened, according to what he has read in the media, the energy price debate in Spain. As an investor, I would like to know if the government plans to intervene in this market to establish the risk of our investment in Spanish utilities.
Okay, thank you so much for this very important question. As I said, for us it is key to deserve confidence and to ensure predictability and stability. The whole setting of reforms, the strategic understanding of where we want to be is stated and clear in our strategic documents, the National Integrated Plan on Energy and Climate, the announcement of the different fields of action or of where we want to be. And I think that we have achieved a lot. As I said, the priority on social concerns and the modernization and update of the energy system understood as energy system and not just power market is quite important. We know that we have achieved a lot, but we also know that we need to pay attention to the energy poverty strategy to improve our capacity to respond to these challenges in the context of the social policies. And in terms of predictability, we are committed to the European lines, as it couldn't be in a different manner. We need to explore if there is room for improvement in the way the market works. We do not consider that some of the proposals coming from our partners in the government, in the coalition government, as nationalizing or building a public company to generate power is a good idea. The other way around, we think that there are many different initiatives coming from different settings, including the association context, that are willing to take part in the energy production, in the energy market. So we think that the main lines need to be clear with no surprise. This does not prevent, of course, to be fully aware of the importance of being transparent and to streamline the well-functioning of the market, but not surprise.
Thank you very much. Another investor from London, again, is asking on the European funds that Spain is going to receive and how are they going to be distributed. Okay, her question goes like this. Spain is expected to receive a total of 140 billion euros in European direct and indirect funding. Mm-hmm. Around 30% of it will be destined to promote Spain's energy transition. What will be the government's specific destinations for those funds? I
recommend to to get the links from the ministry, so to get a much more precise definition of the different allocation of these funds. But I think that it is important to stress right now that there are some lines that will facilitate a quite capillary investment along the different regions and cities in the country. For instance, there are two main projects that have already been discussed and approved with the different regional governments, which are a plan to promote solar roofs in industrial and services areas or rechargers in the public space. There are also projects that are more singular and particular projects dedicated to innovation in this context, such as the green hydrogen, as I was commenting, or facilitating access to some storage solutions, or working with industrial related activities, such as working on batteries in the electromobility, or working on the capacity to digitalize to the extent possible, to count on a smart grid system and smart consumer and domestic improvement consumption. So I think that there are different fields at different scales. Some of them quite short-term thought, and many others that go beyond. I think that the main message around this plan is that we fully understand that the main goal is to facilitate the transformation, the update and the modernization of our economies, so to be much more efficient and much more smarter. At the same time, with these mid-long-term strategic goals that connect very well with the National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan, we know that we need to be pragmatic, so to be massive, and to count on the many big, but also the many small initiatives that are going around. This is why we are going to combine big projects with many small, scalable or replicable projects. And I think that the big question mark is to what extent we can make full use and take full advantage of the intention to renovate our infrastructures, to renovate our cities, our houses. So the renovation wave, connecting not only with the big firms, but with the 25 million owners of apartments and houses all around Spain, to invest in a much more efficient, accessible, and intelligent context at home, where we have learned to be, and we have learned to what extent it is important to count on these sound and welcoming, warming houses during these months of lockdown.
Thank you very much. You have already answered the following question, so you have answered two in one. So I'm going to go to another one. This investor from Paris is asking about the regulation regarding the energy industry in Spain. He says, as an outside observer, I have seen that Spain is changing drastically its environmental and energy policies. What kind of regulatory certainty do we have for our investments in order to foresee the evolution of this industry in Spain in the incoming years towards the green energies and the energy transition?
I think that the main message in this context is that we are seeking for an energy transformation that moves everybody towards the same direction. So it's not only something that it is important in all social terms, but also as a national goal, as a target that we all ensure is supported by the different spirits, the different interests behind this very important driver, which is energy, for our comfort, for our industrial performance, and so on. It is a question that relates to big business, to big consumers, but also to every single citizen. My impression is that there is a very broad consensus supporting the type of changes that we are promoting. And this is the strongest guarantee we can count on. People thinking that this makes sense. This does not avoid that sometimes we can have some warm discussions on the details of some of the movements or the speed or the balance in the combination of the different measures. But I think that, as he was saying, the structural reform that we have been promoting for more than 2 years now is quite sound rooted. I think that there is a strong support. We have tried to manage and to send a message on what type of energy system and electricity system we want to be, how we ensure a proper regulatory context that should last for a very long time, how we provide the right signals, and this is something that it is particularly important when dealing with some questions such as the introduction of this sustainability fund for the national electricity system under discussion, so all the forms of energy contributing to the development, the initial development of the renewable energy systems, but also providing a proper signal of price for electricity, lowering the price of electricity and showing the share of fossil fuel solutions in the energy system to the contribution to these goals. And as I say, stressing very much all these other social policies associated to the energy regulation as such, working on just transition or working on the poverty energy strategy, which is also quite advanced. Of course, we still need to complete all these changes, all these initiatives, to provide and to ensure the robustness of what we are doing in technical terms, in physical terms. So I take advantage of this question coming from Paris to insist on something which is very important for Spain, which is the interconnection. We know that the Iberian Peninsula is almost an island. We know that this forces us to be pioneers, to be leaders in the storage and green hydrogen solutions. But we know that in order to stabilize the price and to stabilize the market, we still need to do more on the interconnections. And this is something that any French-based investor should also appreciate towards the French administration. So I think that the robustness is there. My impression is that there is a broad support, as I said, not just coming from the utilities or coming from the financial sector, coming from the society. And in general terms, even if we are quite passionate, I could say, in general terms, also from the different political sensitiveness in the country, not just the parties in the government coalition, but I could say, as I said, in the national parliament and the regional parliaments. And in fact, all the measures that we have adopted have been that we have promoted have been adopted by a large majority, and sometimes even with no vote against in the parliament.
Okay, thank you very much. The last one. Okay. A Spanish investor from an international firm is asking a very pragmatic question. How should a company proceed if it has an important industrial circular economy project but requires extra funding and grants to make it viable? How can a company have access to the next generation funds? To whom should a company address?
What we have been working on is to go on a logical step-by-step approach. So trying to identify and to give full transparency on the main priorities of each of the programs, then calling and understanding what are the initiatives and the interests around the country, so mapping publishing a call of interest for the different initiatives along the lines to learn where we've got and where the interest may be. We need to identify what is the most adequate, the most suitable mechanism of allocation of resources in each of the line. And it is not the same, as I stated before, to have this territorial distribution of funding for the initiatives at the very capillary level than working through some other lines that are much more important for big industrial projects. But we think that in this circular economy context, we need to make this mapping, and I think that there is lots of interest in many different fields in the different industrial sectors, and then we will probably go through public calls in order to be sure that we can combine and be smart in the final decisions. The things that are fully mature and clear right now would allow us to send this very first set of investment plans and distribution of funds along the first trimester of the year. And during these first weeks of the year, January up to mid-February, we will be framing the calendar along 2021. So in the coming weeks, we will be much more clear and precise on how we'll launch these calls for the investments, or those being interested in investment in circular economy solutions for our industry.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you very much. It has been a real pleasure to have you here to listen to your firsthand to your thoughts and proposals, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending the first session of the 11th edition of the Spain Investors Day.